So I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name's Adriana, she, her pronouns. I am part of the undergraduate admission team, and I'm going to turn things over to Camille just for a brief welcome and introduction before you meet the rest of our panel for this evening.
Thank you, Adriana. Good evening, everybody. My name is Camille Boaknight. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission at Emerson College. I first just want to congratulate you all, as well as your families, on being admitted to the Emerson community. We're excited to hopefully welcome you all to join us in the spring of 2025 and look forward to working with you and your parents as you sort of make these final decisions as to where it is you would like to see yourself in the upcoming year. I'm going to pass it along for my colleague Dan and current student Timothy to introduce themselves. Dan?
Hi, everyone. First and foremost, congratulations on being admitted to Emerson College for spring 2025. My name's Dan Riley. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm also an admission counselor, part of our undergraduate admission team. So I work with students in most of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and then Massachusetts, Cape Cod, and the islands. I'm also an Emerson College alum, so I went here from 2017 to 2021. I was in our performing arts department. So I'm really excited to be welcoming all of you here. I'm going to be passing it over to our student, Timothy.
Hi everyone, I'm Timothy. I'm a senior PR major, which I will be graduating in May, which is very exciting. I'm a spring 2021 admin actually, so I happy to answer any question that you have. Um, so happy that I get to connect.
Awesome, thank you. So it's wonderful to have you all here. As soon as you'd like, feel free to start adding some questions to that Q&A box. We're going to get started with some questions that we received in advance, since we know there are some things that a lot of people want to know. So Camille, I'm going to come back to you. Can you explain a little bit about what options folks have going forward? I think not everyone was thinking about being admitted for spring 2025. So, what are the options that they have, and where should they indicate what option they are choosing?
Yeah, of course. So, as a spring 2025 admit, you have a few different choices that you can select from. All of those options in that selection process would be made through the admission portal. So you would just go right in there and click on the form to say which option you would like to move forward with. Those three options would include Option A, which is yes, I'm interested in attending Emerson College for spring 2025, and I'm also interested in remaining on the wait list for fall 2024. Option B would be yes, I want to remain on the wait list for fall 2024, but I am not interested in attending the school starting for spring 2025. And then option C would be if you were no longer interested in attending Emerson for either the spring or the fall. Option C would be an option that would withdraw your application completely. Option B would be an option that would withdraw the spring consideration for your application, but you would remain in consideration for the fall 2024 waitlist should we go to that. And then, of course, option A would be for those students who are still interested in coming in spring 2025, whether or not they do come off the wait list for the fall. Most students do elect usually option A or option B. A does give you a little bit more flexibility to determine what it is that you want. At no point, if you do select option A, are you required to submit a deposit prior to receiving complete information regarding your financial aid package. So it just basically is giving us an idea as to what you want to do, and we're able to make sure that your financial aid package for the spring is set up and sent over to you. But we do ask that you select one of these options so that we can move forward in the appropriate manner based on your selection.
Great. So that covers a lot of the questions that we start with. There are some other things to think about. One great option to um, jump into right away is to make sure your school sends updated grades and or final transcripts when they become available, particularly if you're selecting an option where you're remaining on the fall wait list. Those things are helpful to have. You are also welcome to send additional updates, creative samples, basically anything new from when you originally applied. You can send those to admission@emerson.edu, or if you've been corresponding with your admission counselor, certainly you're welcome to get in touch with them as well. One popular question we have, and I'm going to direct this to Dan, is about taking classes at other institutions during that fall semester if you are going to be coming in the spring. So Dan, can you talk about kind of the rules about whether students can take classes at other colleges and what they have to do to have those credits considered at Emerson?
Yeah, of course. So essentially, students who are admitted for spring 2025, they are able to take courses at other institutions. So the student can fully matriculate at another institution, like a local community college, and take, a full term of courses. You have local community colleges in your area. Especially when an option that comes to mind would be if there is a community college that Emerson has an articulation agreement or an admission agreement with, you can certainly take advantage of some of those courses to really maximize the amount of credits that you can transfer over. For reference, there's a section on our webpage that has a list of different admission and articulation agreements. So if you happen to take advantage of some of those courses at one of those community colleges, you can bring them over. I would highly recommend focusing on general education requirements. As long as the student has a C or better, transferring over some of those general education requirements at other community colleges or institutions would translate to our liberal arts courses curriculum. So at Emerson, your curriculum is essentially divided into about 60% major, minor, elective, and then 40% liberal arts. And by taking some of those gen ed courses, those would really translate over to the liberal arts or courses as opposed to taking major specific courses at those community colleges or other institutions. So I would say it's easier to transfer over, gen eds to the liberal arts courses that would contribute towards your Emerson College degree, as opposed to taking some of those major courses just due to the nature of prerequisites and things along those lines. So, there's definitely that option for the student if the student may want to work full-time or part-time for that semester of the fall. They also have that opportunity as well. So there's certainly plenty of opportunities to really prepare the student before entering at Emerson in spring 2025.
We are also a part of a great service called Transferology, which can be a great tool to see if we have accepted classes from a particular institution before in the past. You can look up a list of those classes from that institution to see ahead of time if we would accept that credit. I will say it's not necessarily a comprehensive list, so just because a school or a class doesn't appear on there doesn't mean we definitively won't take it, but it is a nice place to start planning out your courses. I do want to address a couple more things before I come over to Timothy, because I do want you also to hear about his experience starting in the spring, similar to position to what you are all in. But just a couple quick things so that we can also get rid of this PowerPoint. One other thing or a couple other things you can do is that we would love to have you join, if you're a student, love for you to join the community on Zeme. It is an all-student platform, so feel free, if you haven't already joined the Zeme, that is where students are talking with each other about various things, getting to know one another. And so that's a great platform for you to join. We would also love for you to participate in our upcoming virtual and in-person events. So you may be familiar with our upcoming April 6th Picture Yourself at Emerson event. That's a great opportunity for you to come to campus and see what everything is like before making your decision. There will be another one of those opportunities in May as well, if you cannot make the April 6th event. We will also have a virtual Picture Yourself at Emerson the week of April 15th. So if you would prefer to visit with us virtually, you can do that as well. So those QR codes will take you to those respective pages. I will leave that up for just a moment to give folks a minute to scan those if they would like. Timothy, I promise I'm coming your way. Just a couple of relevant questions before we get there. Camille, could you talk about now that folks have been accepted to Emerson, are they now kind of a priority on the fall wait list? Can you just talk about how our wait list works?
Yeah, so the way Emerson's waitlist works is going to depend on the program. So we do admit students into programs, as you know. So if there is additional space in one program versus another, that is how we typically look at our waitlist. We're also looking at those students who have reached out to us to prioritize some of those students to come off the wait list, as well as looking at who has actually responded yes to remaining on the wait list. So that first step really is going to go back to that first slide that we were on that sort of is choosing between option A, B, or C. So that's really going to be step one to making sure that you're even in consideration for the wait list. And then we'll move on to looking at it from a perspective of level of engagement as well as major that you're coming in as.
And just one more quick clarification on this, as this is often a confusing topic. If folks select that option A, have they committed in a binding way to come in the spring?
Not at all. So if you've selected option A, as I sort of stated before, that is still a non-binding decision that you're making. It just gives us an indication as to what we should be considering you for when it comes to the financial aid packages that our Office of Financial Aid does have to create. And will also give us a better idea as to if you do choose the option A, still remaining as part of spring versus moving you into the fall. That just gives us a better idea as to your level of interest there as well. But at no point is any decision truly binding. Yes, if you do decide to deposit at Emerson, that's also not a binding decision. You could certainly decide to change your mind, but it is important to know that if you do deposit, it is a non-refundable deposit that you would be submitting. So it is important to have those conversations with your families about what makes the most sense and what's the best fit for you at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we are also all here to help with those conversations as well. So if you have questions, would like more information, we certainly encourage you to reach out to us to talk about those questions. All right, Timothy, finally, I would love if you would just talk about a little bit of your experience, what it was like to start in a spring semester, what your kind of expectations were coming in on this kind of, not considered traditional timeline, and how you experience, integrating into the Emerson community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me personally, so I graduated in graduated from high school in like fall 2020. And then I was like, oh, let me take a gap semester. It might be a good idea because, the pandemic happened. And I decided to kind of mentally transition myself into as a college student. And I think that's a really good way and it's a really good timeline for me personally. And I kind of pack up my stuff. It takes some time to move to Boston because it's such a city vibe. So for me, it's given me like ample time for me to pack up and get ready, not just physically, also mentally to get ready as well. So when I kind of got to Emerson, people were like, "Oh my God, it's so weird if you go to college in spring." It's exactly opposite in Emerson's case because when I got off my car and they were like, "There's orientation leader helping you. There's always org fair you can join clubs at. There's spring orientation as well where you can meet friends, like talk to many different people. There's student there to always kind of support you through this process as well. So for me personally, it was a smooth process. It's almost like the same as like fall students. So for me, there's no quote unquote discomfort, you know what I mean? So for me, it was perfect and I wouldn't want it any other way. That's kind of like the brief my experience on like being admitted in spring and then come to Emerson in spring.
Excellent. And then one of the other popular questions that kind of comes along with this is the question of housing. So can you talk about what your housing situation looked like in terms of living on campus, um, what move-in was like, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, when I got accepted, when I got there, housing put me in Paramount. I think it was like LB would still have some thing going on with like they renovated. It was like brand new right now. So for me, they put me in Paramount, which is perfect for me. I was in a I believe in a double with another junior, which is a good way for me to kind of talk to current students as well. He's always there for resources. So it was perfect for me. And for move-in in terms of that, I was an orientation leader. So I kind of help planning with like the spring move-in as well. In terms of that, there's always move-in assistant for there to help you roll your bags to your room and help you with like any dorm issue. There's always RA there for you as well. Also, international student peer mentor there for you. So I think it's very smoothly since there's always resources there. And the orientation office always help you with move in and answer any question that you have. So for me, my experience was very smooth. There's no problem at all because it's like pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think the really salient point there is that, we have an orientation for folks who start in the spring, same as we do the fall. We help you move in, because that first time moving in a city can be an experience. So we certainly want to assist with that. And, the other important thing is there are other students doing this as well, other students starting in the spring. So you will definitely not be on your own for that. One more question before we kind of continue on to other things. Can you just talk a little bit about the process, about getting involved? Did you join any student organizations? How was your experience kind of on that social side of things where, I think a concern can often be, well, folks have already started in the fall. How do you get involved on things that are already started?
That's a really good question because for me, there's so many ways to get involved at Emerson. When you first move in, within the first week, there's this thing called org fair. So all the on-campus organization will be in different classroom or different location on campus that you can go and talk to different people from these organizations. So for me personally, my first weekend, I was able to join a all student of color a cappella group as well as join a professional organization called Public Relations Student Society of America. So from there, I was able to network with people, connect with people, and not just when I was there at the spring org fair, I was able to connect with other students who join and who come into Emerson in spring as well. So there's so many different ways to connect with student. So for me personally, I was able to meet my current roommate as well as one of my best friends right now through this orientation and through this org fair event. So I think there's people might be worried about it, which is completely normal and completely valid. But there's always resources and always people there to connect and kind of guide you in the right direction and help you in this process.
Awesome. Thank you. Dan, let me come your way. Can you talk a little bit about, because we were talking about, taking classes at other institutions at the collegiate level, but what about AP and dual enrollment classes taken during high school? Do we accept those credits? Which ones, and how do students submit those for consideration?
So we do, yes. We take AP, IB, dual enrollment courses, CLEP as well. So essentially with AP exams, students want to obtain either 4 or 5 on the exam to be considered for credit with that. With dual enrollments, again, we're really encouraging them to be aligned with some of those general education requirements to translate over to liberal arts courses. And again, we're really encouraging C's are better on those. It's a little bit more case by case basis with dual enrollments. But basically, you would send that information over to us. We would review it with our registrar office and essentially determine if the student would be eligible to have that credit brought over. So there's certainly opportunities to take advantage of those college level courses. The maximum amount of AP, IB, CLEP, dual enrollment courses you can transfer in as a new first-time student is 32. So you can certainly take advantage of those courses to really help with graduating a year early or semester early in some cases, it does make a difference. It can also free up some flexibility if the student may want to pursue a double major, if the student may want to pursue more than one minor. You have that opportunity through the AP courses, through the dual enrollments, IB exams as well. So it's definitely something that we highly encourage students to take advantage of when they're in high school. And also, if you do decide to take some college level courses in the fall before coming to Emerson, definitely helps with the graduation timeline, so to speak. One other thing I wanted to mention, just wanted to circle back to the spring orientation program, just as someone who worked on it as part of undergraduate orientation course staff when I was a student at Emerson, and kind of piggyback off what Timothy was saying. So with the fall orientation, it is a lot larger, but one of my favorite things about the spring orientation was due to it being a smaller group of students that really contributes to relationship building when the students are transitioning to campus. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to really establish those deep harmonious friendships right off the bat when you're getting to Emerson, whereas in the fall it can be a little bit of a larger group. So for students who do well in individualized settings, you can get a lot more out of that undergraduate orientation experience in the spring, whereas the fall may be a little bit on the larger side. So I do want to point out that that's one of the really unique features when it comes to the different social programming, academic resources. You can really take advantage of that coming into the spring as opposed to larger scale in the fall.
I forgot that this webinar was majority Emerson orientation leader staffed. That was always one of my favorite experiences at Emerson as well, so can't speak about it highly enough. Um, Camille, the question on everyone's mind is, what in the world is going on with financial aid? Could you just talk a little bit about the timeline, given some of the FAFSA woes and what we're looking at in terms of getting information out to people?
Yes, of course. So we appreciate everybody's patience with us, really across the US when it comes to financial aid packages and understanding that the FAFSA is significantly behind schedule this year. At this point, we have started receiving those ICER files, which are the files that the government will send us um, for off of your FAFSA submissions. So thankfully, we have started receiving those. And we recently got the software update based on the new FAFSAs from the company that we use to assist us with processing those. So my hope would be that within the next 2 weeks or so, those financial aid files with complete information utilizing both the CSS profile as well as the FAFSA will be available to us. If you did have an error on your FAFSA, the good news is that you can finally go back into the system and make all of those updates. The bad news is that if you wait to the last minute to make those updates, your FAFSA will be delayed even further as they are still catching up. So they're about 2 weeks behind in ensuring that they're all caught up with releasing those packages. Um, I believe that hopefully starting April 1st, we'll be able to start sending out some of those complete financial aid packages to students with the federal information alongside the institutional need-based aid information. As I tell all students, you can certainly submit an appeal prior to receiving your financial aid package, and that would be reviewed for both merit-based scholarships as well as the institutionally and federally based financial aid. If you do have a change in circumstance with your family, if there maybe is some incorrect information on some of the tax documentations, it's always best to kind of get ahead of the situation and start pulling your tax transcripts, W-2s, to make sure that you're ready in the case that financial aid does request those documents. Please, please, please make sure that you are staying aware of those emails that are coming through from financial aid As they do start processing things, they will start requesting additional documents if in case the information does not align. One of the big changes with the new FAFSA is the financial aid officer's ability to correct information using the CSS profile to ensure that the FAFSA sort of matches that information. They can no longer do that. So it is going to add some additional delays in knowing that there are going to be more requests for families to submit some of that updated and corrected tax information. When it comes to the timeline for when our spring students are going to be receiving those packages, I believe it's going to be really in alignment with our fall students as well. We do want to make sure that everybody has the information at the same time in order to make final decisions. And because everybody has the same deposit deadline, it is very important for us to make sure that that information is getting out to you in a timely fashion. As far as I know at this point, in speaking and working with our financial aid team, they are going to start with those students who are in the global programs because they have an earlier deposit deadline just due to their summer start term. And then they're going to start working on the fall term students in coordination with the spring term students.
A lot of great information. Thank you. A couple of related questions, particularly for our international students. You mentioned the appeal process that is for merit aid as well. So not only for need-based aid. So our international students would be eligible for merit aid only. So you can use that appeal process just the same to ask for reconsideration for merit scholarships. And that goes for all of our students, as well as the need-based part for our domestic students. And then the other good thing to know is, so when we do send out those financial aid packages, within that is a listed estimated cost of attendance, and we split that out into both direct build costs and indirect sort of costs you should anticipate. So not things that would appear on your literal bill, but things like books, transportation, those kinds of things for you to anticipate. For spring semester starts, Camille, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we usually only show the one semester for the academic school year. So since you'll be attending one semester in the 24-25 school year, you will see one semester's worth of costs. If you want to estimate for what a year would look like, just multiply by 2. And that'll give you a good idea of what that would look like for a whole year.
Yes, that is correct. And you can also pull that information off the financial aid portion of our web pages as well. So you can see what the total cost of attendance anticipated at this point would be for you. For international students, you can see sort of what you have to showcase when it comes to your certificate of finances or your proof of finances in order to receive your I-20 form.
And yes, to answer one last follow-up question that just came in, yes, so we are going to endeavor to send out financial aid information in conjunction at the same time as our fall start students. That is our goal. One more thing that's important to note, and I'm going to ask Carly, who's our colleague behind the scenes, to toss this link in the chat because I see she had it handy. One great thing to look at for everyone is we do have a list of private scholarships and other opportunities that you may want to take a look at. They are not affiliated with Emerson, but they are ones that tend to be of interest to our students. Keep in mind that they have varying deadlines, requirements, and things like that, but it's a good place to start if you're looking for some additional funding uh, availability from other sources. Okay, Timothy, I'd actually like to toss this your way because we were actually just talking about this a little bit ago. Do folks who start in the spring often graduate at the end of a fall semester, or do you kind of quote unquote catch up to graduate in the spring? Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing and how you got there?
Yeah, so there's depends on the student's plan. They could be graduating in December or you can play catch up. So me personally, I took the catch up route. I did took some non-tuition credits at Emerson. Also, I have a couple credits transfer in from AP courses, and that just kind of almost mix and match together, able to play a catch up for the fall semester. So that's like the best way for me personally, but obviously it's different from people to people. It's there's definitely some resources at Emerson. People can help you pick your plans and find your best route to graduate.
Yeah, I think the key thing here it is very individual. It may also depend on if you do what we were talking about earlier and maybe take some classes during that fall semester elsewhere. It means you would already have credits. You may have credits with those AP, IB dual enrollment that we were talking about earlier as well. So that can certainly change your timeline a little bit too.
Can I just
Timothy,
sorry, can I just throw in also that for the international students in the room or anybody in the US who is taking a British curriculum, those A-level examinations are also transferable for credits. So I would always make sure that you're sharing your official test scores and sort of connecting with the registrar's office to see which international examinations they do accept at the college for some transfer credits.
thank you. I always forget about A levels mostly because it takes me a long time to decipher them. They're not something that I was used to working with, but Camille's an expert, so thank you.
I was
Um,
also gonna throw one more thing in. I was just gonna say with a good piece of advice I encourage for students coming in the fall and the spring is meeting with an academic advisor right off the bat to really discuss a game plan, especially for students who are coming in the spring. We have our academic advising center, so you can certainly take advantage of that when you come to Emerson in spring 2025 and really kind of map out a game plan of, are you someone who may want to graduate catch up on time in the spring? Are you someone who may want to graduate in the fall and then walk with the class during graduation? So there's opportunities for both of those. Like Timothy was mentioning, it's very dependent on the student. It's also dependent on the major as well. So definitely have those conversations with an advisor, get a game plan going, and then start enacting it. You know, map out what your goals are of the graduation timeline. Map out, is it a goal of yours to declare a minor, to take on an additional major, anything along the lines of that, fitting in internships, deciding to go abroad, taking advantage of Castile Well, Emerson, Los Angeles. So academic advising is a really, really great resource that I highly recommend you take advantage of. Just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Also a great addition. Any others just before we keep going? Okay, I think we're good. So really, Timothy, would you just talk a little bit about when kind of spring orientation and move-in occurs? I will say, typically, generally, we start reaching back out to you in the November-ish timeframe to start going through some of those housing course selection things. But then when does actual move-in and orientation tend to occur?
Yeah, so for my experience, obviously it depends on different semester and how the orientation plans. But for based on my experience, they Emerson or the orientation office as well as housing office always keep me updated and keep me in a loop on if there's anything occur, if there's anything coming up. So for orientation and move-in specifically, they will always send me updates like a month or two in advance, be like, hey, this is remember to pick your move-in dates, pick a time. We're gonna this your designated move-in time. So there's no one's gonna be like, oh, my turn, it's my turn. But no, this your time and that's your own. And for orientation specifically, they will always give you a list of a list of, for example, either on Zoom or on in person, to give you in advance and like, please sign up. So so you'll remember you're gonna be there to make sure that everything's on track. So everything is very organized and making sure that you have everything in advance. So So you can map out the events you want to attend and make sure you're aware of the move-in time and you're on track of all your move-in and orientation.
Super. So it seems like we might be down to the final question. So if anyone has any others that they'd like to toss in the Q&A box, now is the time. Oh, as I said, that one came in. So I'll ask the question that was there first. Camille, is there a particular timeline for when we aim to notify folks if they have been moved off of the fall wait list? What does that typically look like? When do we make our final calls on that?
Yeah, so you will find out if you've been taken off the fall wait list or if you're remaining in the spring, no later typically than June 30th. We know that with various populations, there's different things that you have to do. So we do try to make sure that you have everything necessary in order for your on-time start, because you'll have to go through the process of filling out your housing application, filling out your academic advising application, making sure that if you are a student who does require an F1 visa, that you have enough time to get your documentation in, as well as scheduling your appointment, and various other things that you have to do to ensure that you're getting your F1 visa on time. We also want to make sure that you're able to notify your current high school that you are attending of the institution that you've selected, and request of them to submit your final high school transcript to us. So we do try to make sure that we give you enough time in order to make sure that the stuff that you need to process and take care of is taken care of prior to you arriving on campus in August.
Dan, if you want to start, and then Timothy, if you want to add anything to this, given that we are in the heart of Boston, can you just talk about some of the safety measures that we have in place on the campus?
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to safety at Emerson, it's definitely our number one priority. We have a tap and go system, so all of our students have, and staff and faculty have our Emerson College IDs like these. So you're able to tap and go into the buildings, so that they track you and keep monitoring you to make sure who's in, who's outside of our facilities. There's also security guards present at each of our locations, to make sure that our students are safe as well. We have Emerson College's police department, ECPD for short. So that's another great resource that provides notifications via text message, email, communication in regards to emergencies, weather alerts, things along the lines of that. So they're making sure that our students are safe on campus. There's also blue light systems as well. I would also say it's very much, present in the culture and the community too. So students always are supporting each other and making sure that, if you're coming home from, a film set off campus at night, the buddy system, walking with multiple students as well. So I definitely reinforce that, the culture of the Emerson students encourages maintaining safety as a priority.
Thanks, Dan. Um, and last question that I see in the Q&A box, and then we'll do kind of one last wrap up. Just to clarify, I think Camille, you might have mentioned this earlier. Yes, for folks who were admitted, were admitted to a specific major, the one that you indicated on your application. If you are not sure, don't remember what that might have been, it does also appear in your letter, your acceptance letter, so you can reference that in your portal. If you haven't yet picked a major and you want to do that, that's certainly something we can do now. So if you applied undeclared, you can do that at this point, at this juncture in your portal. In terms of things that can be submitted at this point to indicate interest, I assume the intention was for fall 24. If folks want to indicate kind of their further interest, we welcome any basically new information. Updated and then final grades are certainly the most helpful in terms of us looking at our wait list. Some folks like to send some updated creative works, accomplishments, perhaps since they've applied. Those we would welcome just to the general admission inbox, which is admission@emerson.edu. Your school, of course, would need to send your updated transcripts when they're available. But those are generally the most helpful pieces of information. If you haven't chosen a major yet, actually, this is a nice connection. If you haven't chosen a major yet, and you would like to do that at this point, now's a great time to do that as well. Okay, so I don't see anything else in the Q&A box. So I would just love to ask everyone for one final thing. Oh, actually snuck one more in there. For Timothy, I think you touched on this, but if you don't mind one more time, I believe you said you started out living with a junior, right? Yeah, so for spring folks coming in, it's not always that they're paired with another incoming student. It can be a variety of things, just because at that point it's based on where our rooms are available. I do believe we do our best to try and match folks as best we can, but our housing folks are moving a lot of pieces around, so they do their best at that.
They will also try to prioritize pairing you with another first year student at this point now that LB is back online.
That is true. Yes, when Timothy moved in, there was some construction happening. So we do have one residence hall that is dedicated to our first year students. So that's certainly our priority to start. All right. Camille, you might know this the best. Typically, how many students tend to start in the spring?
We typically have on average between 150 to about 200 students starting in the spring. That would be inclusive of um, students who were offered spring starts at this period, as well as new applicants for the spring semester that would be received in November for both first year students as well as transfer students.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So before we sign off, if we could maybe go Timothy, Dan, Camille, if you could just offer one piece of advice for students as they're considering their options, and whether it's something you wish you knew or something you want to be able to tell everybody all the time, just one piece of advice.
Do I go first? Yeah, sorry. It caught me lacking for a second. But yeah, for that one piece advice, I think for me is please don't feel like you're like falling behind. Like I think that's kind of the main mindset student will go into thinking that, oh my God, I'm falling behind. But please do not think that, because I think everybody have their own timeline. Because for me, I thought about that for a quick while, but I feel like this is like the perfect timeline for me. We all study, we all process different way, and we're all individuals. So for me, this might the perfect timeline for me, and there's always resources for you to help you if you feel like and to support you, you feel like, oh, I have question, I have concern, I have issue. There's always Emerson resources to help you. So that's the advice for me to give you. So please don't worry at all.
Yeah, I would definitely reinforce what Timothy was saying. Every single Emerson student is on a different journey and on a different pathway. Sometimes we'll have students who may take gap semesters who start in fall. Sometimes they may take a gap year and come back to Emerson as well, with a leave of absence or any circumstances like that. So, that puts them in their journey that they're working towards. So each student is going on a different timeline. I think when it comes to most helpful pieces of advice, something that I see often with, students who may start in the spring is sometimes they're really, really eager to get involved right off the bat. And this also goes for some students in the fall as well, where they tend to, overcommit to a lot of extracurricular, co-curricular organizations. So I think it's really important to take advantage of some of those resources that we were covering. I know, for instance, our wellness center, they give workshops and resources for students to really learn how to maintain an appropriate school, work, extracurricular life balance. So I definitely reinforce that. I think, finding organizations that you're really interested in, joining those, but also maintaining boundaries so that you're not overcommitting yourself with lots of different extracurricular organizations, and then you have class on top of that. And some of our students may work a part-time job on campus, and that can, oftentimes lead to burnout. So I think, really finding that healthy balance is going to be my best piece of advice. That's something that I look back on my own Emerson experience, and it was an adjustment period and a learning curve that first freshman year. That's what that freshman year is all about. It's navigating, bridging that transition from high school student into college student. And by the time you're a senior at Emerson, it's really starting to bridge that transition between college student to entering the workforce, going off to graduate school if that's something that you're interested in. So that would honestly be my best piece of advice to all of you, is just take the time you need to find what it is you're interested in, what it is you're passionate about, but also make sure that you're having that balance and not overcommitting and overextending yourself.
My advice would be to really just take a moment to take a breath. You've sort of done the hard part. Getting in is usually the hard part for most students. So congratulate yourselves, pat yourselves on the back for all the opportunities that you've been admitted into. I would also say, now that you have hopefully all of your admissions or some of your admission decisions, really take the time to explore all of those opportunities and make sure that you're making the right decision for you. Emerson is a great place, but there are a number of other great places as well. So really find the fit, ask the questions, connect with community members, faculty, staff, current students, and possibly alums at this point to see what their experience has been as part of this community. And hopefully they can help you to see your future self within this Emerson community.
Absolutely. My short advice is please check your email. We send everything there. Please keep checking it. That's a lot of helpful information that's going to land in there. So please keep an eye on that. If you need to update it, if you have a school email in there and you're going to graduate, very helpful to update that email so that you keep getting our emails. My longer piece of advice, it kind of matches up with Camille's in that please feel free to utilize us as resources. We are here to help guide and inform your decision making. We can certainly connect you with other folks that can also help with that process as well. We know it's certainly an exciting as well as a bit of a busy and crowded time for you. So as you're making those decisions, please let us help in any way that we can, whether that's providing information or just getting you where you need to be. I wanted to share quickly one last time just the information about things that you can do next. So if you're a student, we would love to see you on ZME, where that is largely other students as well as a couple of our current students. And then we would certainly welcome you at any of our upcoming virtual or in-person events, particularly our Picture Yourself events in person on April 6th and the virtual week, the week of April 15th. April 6th is available to register for directly in your portal, but you can also utilize that QR code to go to all of our upcoming events. In the chat, I believe my colleague will drop the link as well to our newish YouTube channel, which is where all of our previous webinars and this webinar will live. We will email this recording directly to you since you registered for this particular webinar, but if you want to catch up with any of our previous sessions, see anything going forward that you might miss, you will be able to find it there as well. And we look forward to certainly seeing you at something in the future, whether that's in person or online. Thank you so much for attending this webinar tonight. Hopefully it was helpful to you, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks, everyone.